Thanks for joining us this Sunday at either 9 a.m. or 10:35 p.m. for ABC24 This Week for the real story behind the big stories. It's been another week with a lot to discuss, and you've come to the right place because I promise at the end of these 30 minutes, thanks to the experts you're going to be hearing from today, you will have learned something you don't know right now. Let's get right to it. First up, budget blues. Whether it's the city budget or county, financial pressures on both have elected leaders warning us a property tax increase may be the only answer. Also today, what we'll call leadership in limbo, from who will run the city of Memphis to who will run the school system. We don't know who it'll be, but we'll talk about developments on both fronts this week. And Trump indicted again. Our elected leaders in Congress could not wait to weigh in on the 37-count criminal indictment even before it was unsealed. We'll talk about the politics behind that decision. Before we get started, I'll introduce my esteemed panel today, starting on my far right with ABC24 political analyst Otis Sanford. Next to him is political consultant Susan Adler-Thorpe. And next to me is Keith Norman, senior pastor at First Baptist Church Broad and former chairman of the Memphis NAACP. Thanks to three of you for being here. We appreciate it. Let's start by talking about the budget situation facing the city and the county. It's pretty gloom if you're to believe the initial reports and what we heard from commissioners and city council members this week. Let's throw up the numbers we have on the county budget blues first. Funding for Regional 1 Hospital, of course, is the major issue right now. They're trying to come up with $350 million, which is really only half of what they say is going to be needed to get Regional 1 to where it needs to be as the city's only public teaching hospital, the city's only level 1 trauma center. And of course, Mayor Harris also wants to find funding for two new high schools, one in Fraser and the one in Cordova that was part of that 3G settlement. The wheel tax is what Mayor Harris had banked on to hopefully pay for most of that. He wanted to double it from $50 per vehicle to $100, but that was voted down by commissioners. And so now they're looking at the property tax increase of somewhere between 14 to 18 cents in the tax rate. Which would amount to 50 to 75 bucks on a home and around the $200,000 category. So, Otis, I'll start with you. This Regional 1 situation is one that has been a story since I first got here. Yeah. It's always been a problem in terms of, they do great work, don't get me wrong, but just how we're going to finance it, how are we going to pay for it. We need Mississippi to start paying their share, Arkansas to pay their share, and we never seem to really get anywhere there. The state, can you weigh in on the, so now they're hoping to maybe form some kind of consortium or whatever between the UT-HSC right. and Regional 1 so that the state becomes an owner and is more of a participant. Do you think that, but they don't think that can happen in time for the budget?
Well, it may not happen in time for the budget, and I really think that Mayor Harris made a credible case here for the need, obviously, to renovate or certainly actually rebuild Regional 1, and he had a solid argument about the wheel tax. That got caught up in the politics on the county commission. There were a few Republicans who were just going to vote no on it altogether, but you also had some Democrats, including one who just doesn't like Mayor Harris, so he was going to vote against it no matter what. And I'm talking about Edmund Ford Jr. here. But you also had Brittany Thornton who voted against it. Her reason had to do with lack of minority participation in the contracting at Regional 1. So yeah, I think the next option here is a property tax increase. Whether that happens, I don't know, but we only have a short period of time till the end of the month before the fiscal year is over. They've got to do something.
Susan, another argument against the wheel tax, though, is that it's a regressive tax, that whether you have a nice, $80,000 Lincoln SUV, or whether you're barely getting by on a car that's being held together with some duct tape, you're still paying the same amount of money, and it's not fair. It's not a popular tax, is it?
It's probably the most toxic tax right. that we've ever had in this community, and I thought from the very beginning that this wheel tax increase was not gonna pass. I mean, for people who have a car that's held together by duct tape and they need that car to get to work, and I guarantee you they don't live in a house that's valued at $200,000, and one car is an extra $50. But if we have a property tax increase, and my guess is it's going to wind up around 10 cents. It's not going to be whatever people are asking for. That's still less money for these people than a wheel tax increase. you know, stay away from the wheel tax. If I were a politician, I would stay as far away from it as I can. I was really surprised that Commissioner Thornton voted against it. You know, to say there are not enough minority contractors, that's an issue that can be solved down the road.
Right.
And the Regional 1 is not only our first-class trauma center for us and people in the region, but it's where people who don't have private insurance go. It's where people who drive those cars with duct tapes, when they really need a hospital environment, that's their place of choice. If we're going to be a good community and a righteous community, we have to figure out a way to fund this hospital and make it equivalent to all the other private hospitals in the community in terms of quality and efficiency of delivering medicine.
Reverend Norman, I see you nodding your head. What are your thoughts?
So much I agree with, and so much that I think I disagree with as well. So I think it's the wrong horse with too much weight on its back. I would agree with that. The wheel tax is a tax that whenever you talk about it, in 2013 it was voted down, 2017 voted down. The wheel tax came about in order to fund Regional 1 as a part of its initial opening, with also monies for the school system and the repair of roads, all of which we have trouble with: roads, schools, and Regional 1. So the tax has not done its job over the years. And then when we come up again now and talk about doubling it, that doesn't sound good to people at all. Anytime you talk about doubling anything, no matter how small it is, you're saying let's double it. Let's go from $50 to $100. It is not a good tax. It's regressive. So I think we have to find a new horse to ride on this case. And I think we got to take some of the weight off the back. I think by tying these two schools to it, the mayor thought he was doing something that was going to be very good. One's in Collierville, one's in Frazier. Who could go against that? Let's separate the issue. Let's get Regional 1, let's get health care fixed. Now, I will say one thing. People who don't have health insurance, uncompensated care can go to all of the hospitals. And so people can go anywhere. Regional 1 gets a disproportionate share of that, probably because of proximity, location, and violence to some degree, and the class of people who sometimes use that service. But they can go anywhere for service. So we could probably fix health care in the county and the city by giving it a greater forum, but wheel tax won't get it done.
All right, let me ask you about the city budget blues now. Martavius Jones, of course, is the city council chairman, and this week he really feels the need to raise property taxes by an even bigger amount than what the county is looking at. So if you live in the city and the county, which Memphians do, you're really going to get hit with this. He says that he wants to raise the tax rate by 29 cents to provide funding for MATA, which he says he needs. MATA needs $15 million just to get where it needs to be and maintain the status quo. Also for funding for a solid waste fund, affordable housing and youth opportunity trust funds. As I said, 29 cents is what he's looking at there. I see that as a pretty big stretch. I don't know if he's going to get that much for all of that.
Another wrong horse with too much weight on his back.
You know, the thing is, it's so sad about, most of us will never need care in Regional 1. Most of us won't ever ride a city bus.
Right.
We're lucky. And yet those are the two areas of government that we're talking about that really need the money most. So it's a hard sell, is my point.
If you recall, just a few months ago, maybe 6 to 8 months ago, it was the mayor of the county trying to give money to MATA to help with that problem as well. And then when you look at the possibility of the lawsuit of the Tyree Nichols family, draining the city budget next year to some degree, and then raising the tax in an era of high interest rates for even purchasing a home, it's just a bad financial equation for a city caught up in so much poverty.
Yeah. Susan?
He's not going to get 29 cents.
No.
Not
It's
at all.
just not a chance. And then you have to remember that Councilman Jones is not up for re-election. He can bravely go out there and say, let's do it 29 cents, because he's not on the ballot this year. But that said, we're going to have a tax increase. Something's going to raise our taxes this year, probably a little bit in the county, probably a little bit in the city. But I think we need an upgrade in our public transportation system in MATA. We don't have a good, efficient public transportation system in Memphis, and we need it. And we need money for juvenile youth programs. So much of our trouble in Memphis right now, it's laid on the backs of our youth, but it shouldn't only be there. It's really widespread, but I do believe that we have a disproportionate, sizable number of disadvantaged youth in this community, and we as a community should get together, fund it, and help them out.
Find a way. Otis?
Yeah, I'll discuss the matter issue. There's no question that matter needs improvement and upgrades. We haven't even mentioned Blue Oval City. And when that comes online, if Memphis is going to really take advantage of that in any significant way to improve our economic outlook here, a lot of people are going to have some transportation to get there. And I just think that it's up to matter to provide that. So there's a righteous cause here, but 29 cents is a total non-starter here. Susan is right, and Keith is right. There probably will be a much smaller one, both in the city and the county, and it will be driven by somebody like Martavius Jones, who's not running for re-election, and the others will say, I'm holding my nose and voting for it.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. When we come back, we're going to talk about leadership in limbo, I called it. Basically, we have problems with not only our school system not having a leader, but we got to decide who our city leader is going to be too, and there are developments on both fronts right after this.